Wild Cards by Roderick published September 10th, 2009. People have enormous difficulty with, and often a strong aversion to, recognizing something that doesn't fit their established categories. And this helps, I think, to explain why as libertarians, and in particular as left libertarians, we have so much trouble getting our message across. For in the mainstream political realm, we are black hearts and red spades. Most people's first impulse is to assimilate us to some familiar category, and since we talk so much about the virtues of free markets and the evils of government, we tend to get lumped with conservatives since they make similar noises. When more prolonged exposure persuades people that we're not quite conservatives after all, they then tend to become convinced that we're black spades with red borders, conventionally conservative on some issues, conventionally liberal on others, a tendency we ourselves encourage with our in part useful, in part misleading Nolan charts, as opposed to representing a radical alternative to existing ideologies. The moral, I think, is that libertarians, and especially left libertarians, need to focus more on simply getting our position recognized. Getting it recognized is of course not enough. One then has to argue that the position is correct. But I think such argument and defense are to a large extent pointless if people can't see what the position being defended even is. Our vital task, then, is to get the word out that there is a position out there that includes the following theses. 1. Big business and big government are, for the most part, natural allies. 2. Although conservative politicians pretend to hate big government and liberal politicians pretend to hate big business, most mainstream policies, both liberal and conservative, involve slightly different versions of massive intervention on behalf of the big business, big government elite at the expense of ordinary people. 3. Liberal politicians cloak their intervention on behalf of the strong in the rhetoric of intervention on behalf of the weak. Conservative politicians cloak their intervention on behalf of the strong in the rhetoric of non-intervention and free markets, but in both cases the rhetoric is belied by the reality. 4. A genuine policy of intervention on behalf of the weak, if liberals actually tried it, wouldn't work either, since the nature of government power would automatically warp it toward the interests of the elite. 5. A genuine policy of non-intervention and free markets, if conservatives actually tried it, would work, since free competition would empower ordinary people at the expense of the elite. 6. Since conservative policies, despite their associated free market rhetoric, are mostly the diametrical opposite of free market policies, the failures of conservative policies do not constitute an objection to, but rather, if anything, a vindication of free market policies. Of course, we should be prepared to defend these theses through economic reasoning and historical evidence, but the main goal at this point, I think, should be not so much to defend them as simply to advertise their existence. We need to make our red spades and black hearts a sufficiently familiar feature of the intellectual landscape that people will be able to see them for what they are, rather than misclassifying them, at which point we'll be in a better position to defend them. Though admittedly point 6 is already beginning to slide from description to defense. Still, I think 6 is crucial to getting our position so much as a hearing. What I advocate, then, is to make the constant repetition of some equivalent of points 1 through 6 a constant feature of our propagandizing. In conversation, in articles, and letters to the editor, we should hit points 1 through 6 over and over again. The cure for resistance to the unfamiliar is to make it familiar.